Welcome into the CHGO White Sox Podcast. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the offseason being underway. The White Sox have two players that elected free agency, and they picked one up off of waivers. We'll fill you in there. We have a free agent showdown that we'll be doing this week, and you'll also be talking about some MLB awards here on the CHGO White Sox Podcast. Podcast coming to you live from Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, the full CHGO White Sox crew, alongside Vinnie Duber, our CHGO White Sox beat writer. You can read his work up at allchgo.com. And the man in the middle, Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
Our CHGO White Sox community leader. You can follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. And we want to let you know, because today is the last day of the introductory offer. You can become a diehard for $4 a month, $48 a year. You get a shirt of your choice when you sign up. You get access to our CHGO Diehard Lounge. Shout out to Ian, who's a diehard in the chat. You also get access to our exclusive content up at allchgo.com. When Vinny, sends out those White Sox weekly mailbags on Wednesday or Monday, when he's talking to Gavin Sheets, Nicky Lopez, maybe not next year, but examples from this year. You can be able to read that and access that all over at allchgo.com. We also offer discounts on events and merch as well for our diehards. So go check this offer out before it ends today at allchgo.com/intro. Was that a whistle? Is that my time? My time's up. We got to wrap up the diehard reading. Yes. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We're being produced by Sarah.
Hello.
There's a bird in here.
Yeah, Sarah was just saying hi. Maybe she's a bird. All right, we got a ton of people hanging out with us, so we appreciate it. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the offseason underway. Two White Sox pitchers have elected free agency. They also picked up a player off of waivers. We'll be talking about a free agent showdown. We got Carlos Santana versus Anthony, different guy.
Oh.
And Anthony Rizzo, and then we'll wrap it up with some Herb MLB award ceremony to talk.
Yes.
You're pissed.
Very
you're mad as
so.
hell, and you're not going to take it anymore.
I mean, it's just dumb.
I'm mad as hell that we're not going to be able to talk about Jimmy any longer. We need to talk about Jimmy Lambert because he's elected free agency. Matt Foster and Jimmy Lambert are no longer White Sox for now. I don't think it's shutting the door on the possibility of these guys coming back, but at least at their current status, they'll be looking for other options. What do we make of Lambert and Foster looking outside of the organization?
These obviously are two guys who have been really bedeviled by injuries over the last few years. Jimmy Lambert didn't pitch at all in 2024. It's not terribly surprising that they wouldn't necessarily be in the plans, or should I say big priorities, top priorities in the plans moving forward for Chris Getz as he looks to kind of remake everything with this organization. These are guys who I don't know if they really had sustained amounts of impressive pitching. I mean, listen, they had some good moments certainly, but I don't know if anybody's looking at those guys and say, "Ooh, those are who we need tomorrow to be part of a big time bullpen." Obviously, the White Sox aren't in contention mode anyway right now, but they did try to keep them. I guess they were outrighted, and they just didn't accept that assignment. Which is of course their right, and they went to free agency, so they are no longer with the team.
I find it refreshing that the White Sox are doing this. I mean, long veterans. I think we did our yay nay on all these players the White Sox could have choices on, and I think both of these guys came up with Jimmy Lambert. And I thought that Jimmy Lambert would 100% be retained because of just when he is healthy, you could see there's something there. Now, Matt Foster has been often injured like Jimmy Lambert himself, but I think this is more of like a purging by Chris Getz and or Brian Bannister just to say those guys are good, but availability is necessary. And also these guys are a little long in the tooth as far as what the White Sox are looking for. Like they're probably in their late 20s, both of them, but the White Sox are like, all right, we're just moving on from what we used to be, and maybe Brian Bannister doesn't see these guys as part of their future or counting on these guys to be part of their future because of their injury history. So I think that Jimmy Lambert will get onto another team and be somebody's in somebody's bullpen next year. Now, Matt Foster, I'm not sure because of his often injury, and I don't think his stuff plays necessarily in the major leagues on a team that is better than the White Sox. But the Jimmy Lambert, losing him is kind of tough for me because I think he's going to be a decent arm, but this team's going to suck. So what's having a good bullpen arm going to do for you? And it's going to be a good bullpen arm in a middle relief role, not like a back of the bullpen guy. But I think also to get some clearance on their 40-man and to add people like they did today. So it's neither here nor there, but it's a good thing to see that Chris Getz sees that, you know, the old way of doing stuff White Sox wise are done, and maybe they're just going to go with these young arms, a plethora of young arms, and see what they got out of those people.
Yeah, I think both of these players are going to be 30 before the start of next year. Foster turning 30 in January. I don't know why I said that like I'm questioning. I'm reading it. Matt Foster's going to be 30 on January 27th. Jimmy Lambert's going to be 30 on November 18th. So those guys are reaching their 30s. This is no sweat off my back. I do not care. I will say that just fully. And I think, too, like they could have stayed if they wanted to. And I think it's just more, let's explore my options. It's not like Jimmy Lambert and Matt Foster can't come back. I mean, the White Sox will likely have bullpen availability. So it's if they do end up finding that the grass isn't greener somewhere else, they can always just come back.
But also, if they wanted them to be on part of the team, they wouldn't have outrighted them in the first place.
Correct.
Like these are two players who are not, like I said, top priorities to keep them around. And, you know, it's a roster crunch. It's 40-man roster season. It's always worth paying attention to how many spots open they've got. But as they start here making moves this offseason, and we're about to talk about one they already made today, you got to have room on that 40-man roster, and obviously it wasn't a high priority of the White Sox to make sure that there was a spot saved for either of these two pitchers.
Foster was a fun story in 2020. He had a 2.20 ERA in 28 and 2/3 innings, but then in 2021 and 2022, a 5.14 ERA, a 1.38 WHIP. Then he was injured for the 2023 season, came back in 2024, only pitched in 6 2/3, and had a 1.5 WHIP. Like, he wasn't shut down. Nope. And the other thing with Lambert, too, is this is a guy that was transitioning from being a starter to being a reliever. We saw the velocity jump, but he was never dominant. A guy that had a 1.5 WHIP as a reliever as well, and his ERA as a reliever was worse than it was as a starter. He was a failed starter with a 4.19 ERA, and he, is now a reliever that we got to keep with a 4.37 ERA, a 1.56 WHIP. I don't think that there's anything about these guys that's like must keep. I'm surprised Matt Foster's still even on this team. He's kind of staved off.
He's not.
Well,
was on the team.
He was on this team. Kind of staved off and was able to hide on the 60-day IL there. Like, he was able to survive, but
as was Lambert.
Yeah,
that's where he was all year long too.
Yeah, none of these guys are screaming must keep, must need, especially when you are cleaning out the 40-man. Life moves on, and life moves on to the newest White Sox, Penn Murphy, of formerly Seattle. The White Sox claimed Penn Murphy off of the waivers
from the Astros. Since he was on the Mariners, he's been on like four other teams. The Braves a couple of times.
Yeah.
I believe he was claimed by the Mets, claimed by the Braves, released by the Braves, signed by the Braves, claimed by the Astros.
Jeez. All right. And then, he pitched a little bit in Houston's affiliate this year in Fayetteville, in A-ball, and in a third of an inning, he gave up 4 earned runs.
So that was basically nothing. He was basically missed the entire season due to Tommy John surgery, which he had summer of 2023. The major league numbers with Seattle, really good. So, I mean, you can totally see why this is someone that any team would really want to give another shot to. The White Sox have some room and some interest in moving pieces around in their bullpen. Could be an interesting name that we're talking about in spring training.
Yeah, it looked like the Astros gave him that redshirt year that the Cubs gave Kendall Graveman and Colin Ray a couple of years ago. It's good that he rehabbed on somebody else's dime, and now maybe at the start of 2025, he'll be ready for the White Sox. As Vinny was talking about, at the end of his 2023, filthy, like a sub-2 ERA for Penn Murphy, and I'm sure Brian Bannister saw something in him while going against him as a Giants guy. That's like, yeah, that arm is lively, and if we can get our hands on him, that's why the Mets and the Braves and et cetera teams were looking to get him. But, it's a good thing that he got rehabbed on somebody else's dime, and now the White Sox can bring him in and have found money. If he's nothing, cool. You can just be released just like the other teams have.
Yeah, and he's funky. I think that's the biggest thing that sticks out for Penn Murphy. I think the one graphic that always sticks out in my head is Tampa Bay's arm angles of their relievers, and it's basically posted over a clock. And you can literally just have an arm angle for every single clock. And I think Brian Bannister has talked about the difficulty of going from a guy that's throwing left-handed, maybe more over the top, to a guy that's throwing at a 2-degree arm angle from the right side. It's just difficult for guys to really get into a rhythm, especially if you're giving them so many different looks. Hey, this guy's, got a lefty with a ton of rise on his fastball. This guy's a righty with a ton of sink on his fastball and a sweeper. It's just completely different looks. Murphy, he has a very interesting fastball profile, less rise than anything. It's got more drop, but it's got like a unique amount of drop to the point where it doesn't even look like a four-seam fastball when you look at the movement profile on StatCast. And the sweeper has been hyped up. Again, from this arm angle, he's able to get a little bit more of that seam-shifted wake that Brian Bannister talked about when he came over here. His sweeper moves more towards first base than anything. So it's just going to be one of those sweepers that looks like it's going to die maybe at the edge of the plate, and then it ends up just being in the left-handed batter's box because of the seam-shifted wake.
The Rays have a 6 o'clock guy? Throws through his legs?
I think Rogers is the closest thing to it. But yeah, maybe that's the next
just right through
invention of pitching. They're not going to move the mound. Probably it's probably going to be 60 feet,
right through the 5 hole.
Mm-hmm. Right. No one's expecting it. It's the same thing in Rookie of the Year. When you give him the softball, he's not expecting the slowest pitch ever. It's just giving a different look. You don't have to throw 95 as long as you can throw between your legs.
And doing my research, I just found something interesting. His name is William Penn Murphy, named after the Quaker Oats guy. I'm sure people like Quaker Oats. No, he's more of a Quaker Oats, the oatmeal place.
William Penn was the founder of Pennsylvania, the colony. He was the head of the Quakers.
Yeah, but he's the Quaker Oats
back
guy.
in the 1600s or 1700s.
Why was he named after William Penn?
Why?
Is he from Philadelphia?
No, he's from Nashville, Tennessee.
That's close enough. William Penn Murphy. I would have gone with Bill Murphy.
Bill Murphy would have been funny. We already have a Bill Murray, though.
What about Eddie?
It would have been perfect.
Eddie Murphy would have been good. Murphy, though, I'm reading this now on his Wikipedia, was an infielder for his first 2 seasons before converting to a pitcher. So, hey, maybe this is Jack Caglione, but he's just 30 and has a 2-degree arm angle, and it's been
he's got
put on waivers.
Less mileage on that arm, that's for sure.
Yeah, they definitely is like, oh, you can't hit, so get your ass to fucking. Oh, sorry, I can't swear. Get your ass to pitcher. I'm sorry, can't swear anymore.
I know, and here you are just swearing. I think on the last 3 to 4 shows, I'm gonna call the principal on you.
All right.
You're gonna demerit on your record. So no, not spilled grapes.
Spilled milk?
Spilled milk, yeah. So I was going to say
sour grapes, spilled milk.
Yeah, all right. No spilt milk for Jimmy Lambert and Matt Foster leaving. And it's interesting to see Murphy in, but that's about it. We're not really at the point where we have a decision on Andrew Vaughn and Gavin, as Ellie is mentioning in the chat. That deadline's the 17th. So we still have a little bit away until about 13 days until we get probably the true signifier.
The non-tender deadline.
The non-tender deadline. Do you think all those will just be announced that day?
Usually that's how they do it. Yeah.
All right, so we got about 13 days before we get more clarification on this White Sox roster. But I mean, maybe next week we hear a little bit from Chris Getz.
And before we get
tomorrow,
before we get
he'll talk to a couple of the folks down in Texas at the GM meetings tomorrow. But then we'll hear from him again on Friday up here back in Chicago.
Since it's the 17th, do you think in this GM meetings he's gauging interest on the guys just so we can know if a move needs to be made on them, whether to retain their services or not, because other people might want them via trade?
I would imagine that's a smart thing to explore.
Yeah, okay.
Can you trade a guy that's non-tendered yet? Can you trade him and then a team picks up that tender?
Yes, there's already been a trade.
Taylor Trammell.
Yeah,
was traded,
that was today.
Yeah,
there was another trade. Over
Soler?
the weekend, right?
Soler for Canning.
Yeah,
for the Angels.
Griffin Canning.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to let you know about our friends over at ComEd and Blue Chew, and then we'll jump into the free agent showdown, and I got to send Sarah some numbers. So let's get on to that. Vinny, let's talk about ComEd.
Sean, ComEd can help businesses save money by becoming more energy efficient.
They can? I didn't know businesses could do that, or ComEd could do that.
Well, that they do.
Oh.
The energy efficiency program can help find up to 35% in energy savings.
That's amazing. Why do businesses not do that? What does a business have to do? This sounds like a great program.
All they've got to do is sign up for a free facility assessment at ComEd.com/biz.
Vinny, again, I'm just unsure of why businesses aren't doing this if they haven't already.
Sean, I know this is hard to get through to you, but maybe they just forgot the website.
ComEd.com/biz? It's just ComEd.com/biz.
Yeah, that's the one.
Do I have anything wrong? ComEd.com/biz. ComEd.com/biz. ComEd.com/biz.
I think that's enough. I think that's enough. But remember, it is ComEd.com/biz. Terms and conditions apply.
Is it ComEd.com/biz?
It is.
Okay.
Terms and conditions do apply. Offers are subject to change. Actual savings will vary by customers' energy usage and rate. The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is funded in compliance with state law.
They say that first impressions are important. What about lasting impressions? That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew helps boost your confidence in the bedroom so you can stay hard and perform your very best. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Levitra, Viagra, and Cialis, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And I know you're saying to me, Herb, does this work? Do I need to try this out? Yes, you need to try this out because they're giving you a month for free so you can see. And you're going to love it, and your partner's going to love it too. And we got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew for free when you use the promo code ALLCITY at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code ALLCITY to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.
Thank you, Herb Lawrence.
You're welcome.
I would just like to say before we move on to the free agent thing, I know we mentioned it in the headline. Herb, you just asked about it. I think important to let everybody know the GM meetings do start today. They are not the winter meetings, right, where you see all the trades and all the signings and all that kind of thing. But it is kind of the opening of the offseason, and all the GMs congregate. This year it'll be in San Antonio, Texas, and they will kind of be laying the groundwork for things. So exactly kind of what you were talking about, Herb, right? The idea that you would be, maybe having some conversations with folks about, what do you think of Andrew Vaughn? Maybe what would you be willing to give up for an Andrew Vaughn? Maybe that informs what we do with him before that non-tender deadline. Or maybe it's the start of the Garrett Crochet trade sweepstakes, right? And the idea is, hey, Chris is going to start having the first of what are going to be many, 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 many conversations in order to see if he can secure the kind of package that he wants in exchange for that level of talent. So I wouldn't expect any sort of gigantic transactional news, but certainly there is going to be that media availability. So, we'll be watching Twitter like everybody else and seeing what Daryl and Lamond, I believe, are going down there from the White Sox media contingent and what they have to say when they hear from Chris Getz tomorrow. But, of course, we are just in a very rare circumstances this year because of the managerial search. Heard from Chris the other day, planning on hearing from Chris later this week. So going to be a lot of Chris Getz comments to share over the coming days and weeks, I would imagine.
And we will be here Tuesday through Friday at 4 p.m. live. So if there's anything wacky or crazy or zany said by Chris Getz or serious said by Chris Getz, we'll have it here at 4 p.m.
It's not like a stand-up session. He doesn't get up there in front of the brick wall and do the jokes.
But what if he did?
That'd be funny. I'd be upset to miss.
Let's truly work out the kinks. Let's try some new things. Let's give people some razzle and some dazzle. I think that's a great idea. We do have a free agent showdown that we'll get to here. Some people have been talking about the first base position as a place that the White Sox might add in free agency. I don't think so. I think we've gone through the exercise here of how much money will the White Sox spend. I think some people put the baseline floor, Sox Machine specifically, at $85 million. I put together a team at $67 million. I think that
the frugal Sean Anderson.
I think that they're going to be the frugal White Sox this year, and I don't think we're going to be seeing signings that really surpass Eric Fetty's deal that was 2 years, 7.5 AAV. I'd be surprised if we saw a 7.5 million AAV contract.
Yeah, I think it was surprising. Obviously, it was relatively affordable, that deal, when they made it down at the winter meetings last offseason. But I think even then we were pointing it out like, there's a guy who's been talked about this offseason, but boy, they got him at an inexpensive price, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it wouldn't be outrageous to see that similar playbook be followed where it's like, hey, there's a guy out there who folks think can be really good. We just happen to find ourselves in a situation where the market dictates that we can swim in that water for that player. Why not give it a shot and try to do what they did with Eric Fetty, which was trade him at the trade deadline?
Yeah, it'd be a great thing for them to do. And I remember I poo-pooed all your transactions, Sean, and I was like, nope, $61 million. And I was just like, that 67 is a lot too much for the White Sox. But, now as I cool down and calm down, I think, some of your deals weren't as bad as I thought they were initially.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sean, for poo-pooing your, who was it? Kyle Farmer deal.
Yeah, Kyle Farmer for $1.75 million.
I was like, no.
Was upsetting you. Bringing back Reese McGuire, which is fair, at $1.5 million was upsetting you. Michael A. Taylor at $3 million was upsetting you. I don't even want to bring up the Chris flexing thing that made you incensed. We'll just skip all of that. But I mean, the big thing, at least for a first baseman to be a part of this squad, is the decision to get rid of either Andrew Vaughn or Gavin Sheets, whether that's through a trade or just non-tendering them. I think it's most likely Vaughn who would be moved. I think it's like 85 to 90% sure that Gavin Sheets will be a White Sox in 2025.
I would agree. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they threw out a trade, our guys over at the 108 with the Reds, and I think that's an interesting place for Andrew Vaughn, a guy that, can be helped by a ballpark that, really caters to power to all fields. I think he hit a home run back in his rookie year or 2021 in Cincinnati. I think his first ever homer might have came at GABP. But yeah, I think that would be a nice place for him, or even the Yankees. We saw them struggle with Ben Rice and Anthony Rizzo, a guy that we're going to get to in a second. I think maybe a guy that can just go out there, and I know the hitting's been iffy, but like he can hit the ball. He can make contact.
He would kill there.
He's not strong enough.
That short porch, oh man, he would hit 35 home runs, and I'll be so pissed.
35?
Yeah.
Maybe he gets to 25.
Travis Jankowski ain't robbing that one if it's hit at Yankee Stadium.
Exactly. It's just 320. All right, that's a home run. Opposite field home run.
35.
Yeah.
What, his career high is 21?
Yeah.
He's going to hit 14 more just because of Yankee Stadium?
Yes, and he's a Yankee, too.
Who was a Yankee was Anthony Rizzo, and I guess he's a former teammate of Will Venable, so maybe that's the connection. Maybe that's why people have brought him up on Twitter.
Oh, Padres, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I was like, I think Will coached him, and then I was like, oh, I'm wrong.
He might have done both there. Yeah, but I think there was some crossover there because he's, what, from 2008 to 2016, and Rizzo might have been there from, 11?
Makes sense.
Rizzo was there?
Yeah.
So would he bring in, or would Chris Getz bring in former teammate of Will Venable, Anthony Rizzo? Sarah, if you want to flash our free agent showdown, here are the 2024 stats for Anthony Rizzo and Carlos Santana. John Morosi also reporting today that Carlos Santana's agent says Santana wants to play for 3 or 4 more years. And why not? He looked pretty good. 594 plate appearances in 2024 for Santana with the Twins, 23 home runs, a weighted runs created plus of 114, a strikeout to walk ratio of 99 strikeouts to 65 walks, and a BWAR of 2.5. He won his first Gold Glove at first base at the age of 37. Rizzo, coming off of this season from the Bronx Bomber, dealing with some concussion issues, 375 plate appearances, 8 homers, 84 weighted runs created plus, 65 strikeouts to 27 walks, and a 0.2 BWAR. Is Santana too optimistic? Is he going to be too expensive for the Chicago White Sox?
I think so. I mean, those numbers are great, and I could see him being a relatively hot commodity for a contending teams that just need a bat, right? I mean, obviously you talked about what he's done with the defense this year, so that's quite the plus. But I mean, you got that DH spot in the National League now. You don't necessarily need to, just look at him as an everyday guy who's going to soak all that up. If you're spooked by the age in any way, bring him in to be a part-time player. I mean, but I don't think it'll probably even get that far. I mean, after what he did this season. So, yeah, I mean, those numbers kind of speak for themselves. I think he's definitely going to get some interest this year from a probably pretty good teams.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking about the White Sox in this situation. The only advantage and the only thing that I would see if Carlos Santana and the White Sox is that they're offering me more money than everybody else is. And we just went over why they wouldn't, because of budgetary constrictions, and they probably wouldn't want us to pay a 38, 39-year-old Carlos Santana more money than the market deems. But as we talked about, Carlos Santana would be a hotly kind of like a commodity that teams would want to have. And if he was on the White Sox, he would only need to go to the Tigers to punch his AL Central card totally, and then he'll be, I think, one of the first people to do that in the history of the AL Central, since it's been established in 1994, 95. And so, yeah, I think that it'll be a good pickup for the White Sox because he's a good first baseman. And secondly, I hate seeing him bat against the White Sox. Every single time, it's either a walk or a home run, or a start single that's going to score a run somewhere. So maybe he can bring in some leadership, some professionalism, some, like, he's played the game forever, so maybe he can play the game or teach these youngsters how to play the game the way Carlos Santana does. And I wouldn't be opposed to that. Anthony Rizzo, no, absolutely not. He's on his last legs. He's not ready for prime time anymore. Maybe going back to the Cubs is more his style, but I don't think anything of Anthony Rizzo being on the White Sox would be a positive for him and or the White Sox, because you probably can't move him at the trade deadline.
And I think, too, the best thing about Santana, at least in 2024, he was horrible in his 11 games against the White Sox. 128, 261, 308. So you're just taking him off a team that really figured him out. You know, I know he's, maybe old Carlos Santana might have been a White Sox killer, but not the Brian Bannister White Sox.
Did he hit any home runs or RBI?
Two homers, 4 RBIs.
I guarantee both of those were very, very clutch.
That's all you needed to beat the White Sox in 2024 was 4 runs.
I'll say this about Rizzo. I think what Herb brings up about why he, the fan, wouldn't want Anthony Rizzo, I think probably makes Anthony Rizzo more of the type of player that the White Sox would be looking at this year. Someone they can get on a deep discount and cross their fingers and say, you just rediscover a little bit of anything and we can move you for something at the deadline. Certainly, I don't think anyone was sitting here in early November and saying, all right, Paul DeYoung, candidate to somebody snap him up so he can be traded at the deadline. But the White Sox paid him, in baseball terms, next to nothing for a veteran player, and were able to trade him for something. So maybe Anthony Rizzo falls into that category. That being said, I don't see them going and getting a first baseman because I think they're going to have more than one as it is. But if you're talking about between the two, if this is the true free agent showdown that Sean pitched, who's more likely to sign with the White Sox this offseason? I think it's Rizzo.
I think that's unfortunately true. We talked about the 7.5 AAV being kind of like the max of where they would go. Santana did sign with the Pirates in the offseason of 2023 for $6.75 million, and then even though he put up 2.7 WAR with Pittsburgh and Milwaukee in 2023, only a $5.5 million contract with the Twins, but now winning a Gold Glove, having back-to-back 2+ WAR seasons, I think he'll likely be in that probably pushing 7 range. So I think that's probably just going to be too expensive for them. The Rizzo move, I don't get, because the Santana one I could talk myself into, because if you're going to tender Sheets, it'd be Sheets hitting righties, Santana hitting lefties. Santana had an OPS of 900 against lefties this year. Sheets would be able to fill in against righties at first base. Santana, even when you want him to face righties, he can be in that DH position, right? I think it makes sense, and it's an easier platoon to talk yourself into. With Rizzo, then that brings up the question, are you going to play Gavin Sheets more in the outfield because that's 2 left-handed bats playing first base? Are you just going to non-tender Sheets? Are you going to tender both Sheets and Vaughn, and then you have 3 first basemen there? Is it possible that you sign Rizzo and he doesn't even make the club on opening day?
It depends. Is he still there in February? Is he still there in March? You know what I mean? Absolutely. I mean, Tommy Pham was a minor league signing in April. Mm-hmm. Why couldn't somebody of that similar stature and similar questions about how much they have left in the tank find themselves without a job come spring training?
And Ryan in the chat saying, don't upset me with Rizzo in a Sox uniform. He's a leader that the organization would benefit from.
But probably true.
Well, and that's the other thing, too, with Rizzo specifically. This is a guy that has won a World Series. What else does he have to prove? Does he want to play baseball that badly for a team that just lost 121 games? I think this is a guy that would be very specific about where he would go. Maybe it's for the Cubs for the nostalgia factor, but do the Cubs even want him? I mean, they just have Bellinger opting into his $27 million contract. They need their free agent signings to hit, not just to have a reunion of the 2016 team. I think that Rizzo is just going to be uninterested in that. I think Santana, if this is a guy that wants to play for 3 or 4 more years and you're able to give him the money, I think you could probably talk him into being a White Sox, and then you could trade him at the deadline. But I think just likely overall, it's probably going to be a little bit too much money.
I just looked it up. Carlos Santana, solo home run off of Steven Wilson, while the score was 4-2 in the bottom of the 8th inning, April 25th.
Did it tie the game?
No, it gave him a 3-run lead.
It was 4-2.
And then the next batter hit a home run off of Steven Wilson also.
Yes, all right, and that's why we didn't see much of Steven Wilson after July. All right, let's take a break, and we'll let you know more about the White Sox. We'll talk a little bit more about the free agent stuff. But Vinny, you got to let us know about beer.
The weather, it's getting cooler. not necessarily happy about it, although it was like 70 degrees outside when I came here. But hey, it's going to get cooler. We all know that. But don't worry. You don't have to give up summer completely because summer shandy from Line and Kugels, it's available year round. That means you can go out in, come December or January when it's snowing on your deck, you can still grill with a summer shandy in your hand. It feels like summer. Maybe you want to go have a picnic by the pancake ice of Lake Michigan. Bring a summer shandy and it'll feel like summer. You can go tailgate. It'll feel like summer with a summer shandy in your hand. But hey, maybe you want a little more, maybe a little more variety. Well, that's what I love about Line and Kugels because they don't limit you to just one. Even though I love the summer shandy, I can have a honey vice, I can have a berry vice, I can have a lakeside cherry or a sunset wheat. Maybe even go up to Wisconsin, get yourself a Liney's Original. It's all so good. So flavor every moment with Line and Kugels. It is the official craft beer of the Chicago White Sox. Go to liney.com/CHGO to find delivery options near you. That's LEINIE.com/CHGO. Or pick up Line and Kugels pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Line and Kugels, flavor the moment. Celebrate responsibly. The Jacob Line and Kugel Brewing Company. Chippewa Falls.
Yes. And we want to let you know about our friends over at Circus Sportsbook. Whether it's pro or college, the app to bet football is Circus Sports Illinois. They are the world's largest sports book. Circus Sports is the way sports betting should be. Circus Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Herb was just down in LV, and got to see the beautiful Circus Sportsbook, the Circa Resort. They run this pristine sportsbook in Las Vegas, and the same team that runs that resort runs this sportsbook. If you ever have an issue, you won't have to deal with any bots. You will talk to real people who will solve your real problems. And the best part, too, is you can bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season, whether it's on spreads, props, futures, or in-game wagering. Circus Sports has it all, and you can fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. So download your new bookie today at circusports.com. Must be 21 plus or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And shout out to Ryan in the chat throwing out Justin Turner could also be a fit. A guy who had a little bit worse of a year, 1.5 WAR compared to Santana's 2.5 WAR. Similar plate appearances, didn't have really the injury issues that Rizzo had. Similar weighted runs created plus OPS of 114, but maybe not the defensive value. But Turner is a little bit older. He's going to be 40 compared to Santana, who's about to be 38. Justin Turner, interested?
I just see first base is really soaked up. I think getting rid of Vaughn right now in either way for the White Sox would really be selling as low as you possibly could or abandoning it at the low point, right? So I think that this is a player who the organization has thought so highly of in the past that they could say, all right, well, what's the matter? Give him another few months, give him another year to see if he can figure it out, and maybe then they can turn him into something at the deadline, or if we're talking about next offseason. So I just don't see first base as a place where they're going to be shopping, because you got Vaughn, who you could see them giving more opportunity to, and they got Sheets, who, while is somebody who hasn't produced at a level that fans are very happy with, he's a guy that the organization likes. He's a leader in that clubhouse. I don't necessarily just see them saying, okay, you got to get rid of Gavin Sheets because somebody else has to play that, has to take that playing time. I don't know if that person is there yet that is demanding that playing time to take it away from those guys. I know it's not exciting for the fan base, but in a year where they're not expected to win many games, I don't know. I think they're probably likely to both come back at least on a tender deal.
Yeah, and Justin Turner wouldn't do it for me. That's another third base, first base option that the White Sox have plenty of. And as Vinny was talking about, I would be really mad if they were to DFA or to non-tender one of these guys and you bring in Justin Turner. That wouldn't be the solution. Now, I wouldn't be too mad with Carlos Santana, even though he's long in the tooth. He'll be 39 to start next year's season. But every year you see him production. Every year there's bat to the ball. And Justin Turner has slowed down aggressively since his heyday with the Dodgers and the the Dodgers when he got traded from the Mets. It looks like Carlos Santana's keeping that same track of still can hit the ball, still can recognize where the pitch is coming out of a pitcher's hand and take it or hit it hard. So, no, I would not be a fan of that. And I found the second home run. It was off Garrett Crochet a week later. 2-run home run to tie the game in the top of the second inning.
Sounds about right. And the White Sox probably lost that game because
they
did. They went 11-1 against our Minnesota Twins.
They lost 3-2.
How fun. All right, so let's get into some non-free agent stuff, and let's go into just what happens this time of the year. There has been a report from Sox on 35th about a potential person that could be joining the White Sox organization. A source from Sox on 35th has told Sox on 35th, how many times can I say Sox on 35th, that
That's
former
4.
Orioles co-hitting coach Ryan Fuller is being considered for a role with the White Sox. We haven't seen a ton about what Will Venable's staff will look like. We know that some familiar faces, Ethan Katz, could return, but no really word on what Marcus Thames' future is with the Sox. Do we see Ryan Fuller being the person that would replace Marcus Thames?
When I heard this news, I immediately went to the Locked On Orioles podcast and listened to the episode where they were talking about him getting him and his departure from the Orioles. And while the other people who were getting removed that day seemed as more of a firing, it was, as the host framed it, that it was more of a kind of like what the White Sox pitchers did today, where they were going to get outrighted. Instead of getting outrighted, they chose free agency. And that's how Connor chose to say the same thing, that, they probably liked Ryan Fuller in the organization, but not at the major league level because of their struggles in the playoffs the last couple of years. And they probably wanted to reassign him. And Fuller's like, I can find another major league job somewhere else. So let's depart from each other. So he's a young cat. He has a different philosophy. I mean, if you just look at those Baltimore Orioles teams, you would say, yeah, I'm in for that philosophy of hitting, where you hit the ball hard, you hit the ball on the ground, you hit the ball on line drives, and you get runs scored. If that's Ryan Fuller's philosophy, I'm in for that. But, they already have good talent. If you have Santander to work with and Rutschman, et cetera, it's not the hitting coach that's doing the job. But I would hope to have somebody from a winning organization like that who's young and has maybe different ideas than what Marcus Thames has. And as Hawk has always said, you need multiple hitting coaches on the team, not necessarily to mold and shape the hitters, because once you get to this level, they're fine. They're, for the most part, know what they're going to do. And some of them even have their own hitting coaches at home, either their dads or coaches from high school that help them hitting coaches. You're just trying to steer them in the right direction when they do fall astray. So I'm not opposed to it. A guy from a good organization, young, that didn't seem like they fired him. They said, just want to reassign you and keep you on the organization. And he was like, I'm too good for that, and I want to go for a major league contract myself.
Certainly vague enough that it could be any number of things. The White Sox do have that kind of assistant hitting coach position open, I guess. I mean, they brought Mike Gellinger up from elsewhere in the organization to fill in after Mike Tozar was let go when Pedro Grifol was fired in August. So they could be looking for another assistant hitting coach. There's also just the idea of maybe some things going on in the minor leagues that they might want to change the staffing around on. But there are other ways that they're looking to address the hitting overall, right? And Chris Getz even brought it up again when he was introducing Will Venable last week, talking about how they're on the hunt to improve that hitting. And so I think bringing any number of folks in any number of roles is probably something that could happen. I don't think we're necessarily counting a small number here. I think you could see things going on as we continue to talk about how Chris wants to kind of rework things behind the scenes in the less glamorous parts of the organization. You could see new staffing kind of all over the place, I think.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that my bad. Fuller was working with the AA affiliate in 2021, has that minor league ability to talk to younger players, which the White Sox will likely be in. And then the biggest thing that I look for is, did the Orioles under Fuller improve their ability to walk more and strike out less? And maybe this is just a sign of where the Orioles are as an organization. Kind of. A little bit. 24.3% K rate to 7.5% walk rate in 2021. When they joined, their walk rate went up 0.4%, and their strikeout percent went down 1.3%, which is decent. And the team went from a 24.3% K rate in 2021 to a 22% K rate in 2024. That number went down every single year with Fuller, and the walk rate was around 7.9, got as high as 8.4. So if the White Sox are able to at least get a walk rate, I think, over 7, I think we could throw a parade. So, I mean, let's take that. It's just, what can he actually provide? The biggest thing that we want to see from Chris Getz's general managing time here is his ability to develop players. We know that has been a big critique. Why did this guy get the job? If his job was development, we didn't see much development with the White Sox. Hopefully, It is identifying the guys that have been able to do it before and could step into your organization. And at least with the ground ball rate, it went from 39% to 41.6% to 42.3% and then down to 40.5%. So it seemed like there was a little bit of an issue that sparked up in 2023, and they were able to fix it. So, I mean, I can't say that's all on Ryan Fuller, but at least just the numbers that I look at, it seems like he knows that you have to hit the ball in the air, which is a step forward for the White Sox.
I don't know if you have it right there. You said it would be great if the White Sox get a 7 or over a 7 walk rate. Where were they last year? I know they were probably the worst team in both walks and on base, so I'm sure they were probably like in the 6.5 area.
The White Sox by year. What are you asking?
What were their walk rate last year in 2024? Because you said
rate in 2021 was 9.6. Walk rate in 2022 was 6.3. Same in 2023, 6.3, and it somehow went up this year to 6.7. Their strikeout ratio in 2021 was 22.8, so they were just true killers. 22.8 to 9.6 walk rate is awesome. Insane. Yeah. Shout out to Yasmani Grandal and Yohan Moncada for that. But yeah, their K rate then dropped to 20%, 20.7% in 2022. But then your walk rate also drops 3%, so nothing really changes there. And then their K rates pretty much skyrocketed since then, 23.8 and 23.9%. So striking out nearly 24% of the time and walking under 7. That's not good.
It's ungood, as the kids say. But I didn't know that 21 team was just so damn good. That walk rate is ridiculous.
A weighted runs created plus of 108. They didn't have a single player that did that. Just a single player in 2024 that did that played more than 13 games.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
It's only 3 years ago.
Yeah, only 3 years ago. So, I mean, maybe Ryan Fuller is the next person added to this White Sox team. But I'm unsure. We're unsure. We'll see how this develops. And I think some of this will probably be revealed on Friday. Is it Friday or Thursday?
When Getz talks up here in Venable, Friday. But last week, when asked about the coaching staff, Chris made a point to say that they weren't going to put a timeline on it. They weren't going to rush it. So obviously last year at the GM meetings is when we heard all those coaching staff changes, and all those folks who are still here were brought in initially as new members of Pedro Griffol's coaching staff. That was at the GM meetings, but I wouldn't expect that all to come together quite as quickly this year.
All right.
Especially with the new manager being just named last week.
Absolutely. Herb does have some thoughts on the MLB awards ceremony, so we'll get to that in a second. We'll also get to something that's been leaked to us. It's very surprising, but we did get, Chris Getz mentioned, they had a list as big as 60 candidates for 2024, their next manager. It was leaked to us. We have a leaked list of Chris Getz's 60 names, so you want to stay tuned to that because it's 100% real and not a joke. But one thing that did scare me that popped up, I was very excited when I saw that Evan Petzold announced that the Tigers have some roster moves. They reinstated Javier Baez, Alex Faedo, Sawyer Gibson-Long, and Brendan White from the 60-day injured list. They outrighted Bleed Madris, Brian Sammons, Ryan Vilde from the 40-man roster, and they declined Casey Mize's $3.1 million option for 2025. I got very excited for a second there. Wow, a former number 1 overall pick. Let's get him into the Banny lab and figure him out. Can you explain to me how a team can decline an option but still have control over them? Because apparently the Tigers still have control over Mize. Is there a way that they can not come to contract terms and Mize becomes a free agent?
I think similar thing was done a couple days ago with another player on a different team where he still has arbitration years. You're not outrighting him, and you're not what they're doing with Andrew Vaughn or Gavin Sheets, but non-tendering. But you still have arbitration available for that player, but you're not getting the money to what they maybe have had. I think it was the Orioles that did the similar things where they're just not going to pay the player what that player wants, and they're going to go to arbitration and pay fewer dollars for that player.
Yeah, I guess it was to avoid arbitration. So I guess they have that club option because he didn't really meet their standards, but wasn't really a starter for them. Now they'll just rework that contract under either arbitration or, again, avoiding that through contract
he hasn't
talks.
been in the majors for very long, so I'm assuming that was just kind of a creative and unique contract or element of his contract, given that he was such a high-profile prospect, and it would seem that maybe it was a chance to get him paid, if he lived up to the hype quickly. But here it is, and maybe he's going along a more normal route now. But I haven't looked into it
They'll have to give him a $10,000 buyout. So I think for now they're declining that option. They'll give him $10,000, but he'll go back to ARB 2. He'll have ARB 3 in 2026, and he'll likely be a UFA in 2027.
Yeah, it was the Brewers. Brewers declined closer Devin Williams' club option for $10.5 million. Source tell ESPN he'll receive $250,000 buyout, and he'll remain with the Brewers in his final year of arbitration, expected to make $8 to $9 million instead of the $10.5 that they could have just gave him because he's earned it as their closer.
So it's a battle between a predetermined amount of money and what the arbiter would award them.
Yes. Gotcha. And Ryan aptly pointing out that Devin Williams' option was also declined by the Brewers. Doesn't mean that they're going to get rid of the airbender, just that they'll likely rework that contract, and that's fair for the Brewers. I mean, the Brewers have been a team that claims they lost money all these years, even though they've been selling out pretty well and doing well in the standings. That's a team that has been very penny conscious.
But Jeff Passan puts in the note for Devin Williams that he is a trade candidate because the Brewers want to purge some of that money. And I wonder, the Tigers wouldn't trade Casey Mize, their former number 1 pick in the division. And especially, I think Casey Mize pitched for the Tigers in the playoffs this year. So that would be weird if the White Sox were to acquire him via trade. But I would think that, you would put Casey Mize on the trade block just because he hasn't hit nowhere near what his expectation was, him or Torkelson.
Yeah, and this is a team that's likely probably looking to compete, so they'll probably want somebody good, and the White Sox just kind of don't have that. So I don't think that they're going to be able to acquire him in any type of trade. So the Casey Mize door has been open and effectively shut. So no Casey Mize on our 2025 offseason project plans. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button and make sure you're subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We got about 13 minutes here left in the show. And Herb, you're a little bugged about the way that MLB does their award ceremonies, announcing Gold Glove winners during Sunday Night Football.
Like their whole system of announcing players and their winning on like off days or during NFL games or just at the crib seems kind of off. If you look at the NHL, I think they do it at their a ceremony when they're doing their draft lottery. The NBA does it on the court. So if the MVP is there, you hand it to Jokic. He gets to celebrate in front of his fans. Hey, you're the MVP. That's excellent. Oh, man, that's great. The NFL famously does it, NFL honors, right in front of the Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl city, usually. MLB just does it, like announces it on Twitter or sends a message to that player. And it's just like, yesterday I'm like, Carlos Santana won the Gold Glove. Was there no fanfare for this? Was there nobody just like having an award ceremony for him? So that's why MLB, like, I know that they do things really wrong. Like, you guys got to send your things in before the end of the season's done, right? Your awards?
No, before the playoffs begin.
Before the playoffs begin. So they already know and they got tabulations of who's winning the MVP, who's winning the Manager of the Year, et cetera, et cetera. I wish they just had a better system where they would give out their awards to the players in person or have a ceremony. If the player can't make it, he can't make it. But they have the GM meetings now in San Antonio. They have the winter meetings in Dallas in a month. Why not have, while you're doing the Rule 5 draft, you have those players in attendance, you have their families there, and you give out those awards as a televised thing on MLB Network. It doesn't cost you anything. You own the network. And it's more of a fanfare. It's the other time when Jose Abreu got his MVP award and he's at the crib and it's on some grainy-ass camera. Just cheesy. It's like low class. You're the Major League Baseball. You should be able to give out your most valued award, the MVP, to the player in person and let that player talk about his season, et cetera, in front of his peers and in front of the nation on a national camera instead of picking it up on a Sunday during NFL season, and everybody's like, oh, they're naming the Silver Sluggers tomorrow? That's weird. It's just very odd. Just give the players and give us fans what we want. More MLB throughout the months and make it more of a thing. Like the NFL, what they do, none of their stuff they do is little. The schedule release, it's huge. The combine, huge. When they give out an award, huge. They should follow suit. Even if there's not a lot of interest like the National Football League, do it. It's your awards. Make sure that people know that those guys are getting these awards and it's televised over broadcast.
Well, I I can provide some insight in that it is probably tricky for baseball to do that because they are not the ones that hand out the awards.
You guys, right?
Well, so our Baseball Writers Association is who hands out 4 of them: MVP, Cy Young, Manager of the Year, Rookie of the Year. The Gold Glove Awards are awarded by Rawlings. I believe the Silver Sluggers are baseball, or the league gives out the Silver Sluggers. But they've tried to make their own thing, kind of with that All MLB team, which has only existed for a little while. But I don't think anybody, fan, writer, player, or whatever, treats that like you would an All NBA team or like you would an All Pro team in the NFL. It's a different sport with different stuff and logistical challenges that only exist in a league that's been around for 125 years, right? So, you've seen Garrett Crochet got a few headlines last week, I believe it was, for being named a finalist for the Comeback Player of the Year award. Well, there really is no the Comeback Player of the Year award. That's handed out by the Players Union, and that is just one of a bunch of Players Union awards. Players Union gives out their Offensive Player of the Year and their Pitcher of the Year and everything like that. So I think it's just a bunch of stuff layered on top of each other, which makes it a little more difficult. I'm sure fans don't care about that, but there's an explanation for you a little bit. Personally, as a digester of entertainment and sports, those award shows in the other sports don't really do it for me, especially when they're in the off season. It feels like it's kind of, the spotlight's off the sport kind of thing, move on. You say you want more of it throughout the year. Our awards week is 4 days long. You know what I mean? They do the 4 different awards on a different night every night. That's kind of stretching it out if you want a little bit more of it, but then you do have to deal with, Zooms and whatnot. But I think there's a lot of different things that go into that. When I hear, and I know I've brought this point up before on this show too, that's like, oh, why would you do anything up against the NFL kind of thing? I think if you like baseball, you're paying attention to baseball. If you know what I mean? Like, they don't need to worry about what football's doing. Football always has the lead headline, right? It's okay if you're not the most popular thing that day kind of thing. It happens. Those guys won Gold Gloves. Good for them. We're going to be talking about it, when we talk about these players as free agents for the next few months, when we talk about them, during spring training next year, that kind of thing. So I think that tag is a little bit more powerful than, I hope you saw it that one day or else everybody's going to forget.
Yeah, I'm not an ESPYs guy. I'm not an NFL awards guy, and I wouldn't really care to advocate for the MLB awards presented by Scott's Lawn Care, hosted by Kevin Hart.
Oh, I thought they were going to be hosted by Scott from Scott's Lawn.
Oh, maybe. If he's willing to do
Feed
it,
your lawn.
I'd accept it.
Feed it.
I just, there's nothing about these ceremonies that get me that excited. Like, it would be cool to see Ohtani get a moment where he gets celebrated by Major League Baseball, but he gets celebrated 162 games plus the 12 postseason games. He's on every advertisement. Like, he gets a ton of showing, and it's like, you're not filling TV time anymore. Like, it's mainly just mostly reruns on TV time, and you're just getting live programming like events like this or like actual sports. I just want to see the sport. I don't really need to see, the Silver Slugger for the Seattle Mariners and Silver Slugger for the Cincinnati Reds get their awards. I did throw out this, though.
That's not how Silver Sluggers work.
No, I know. If it was to work with the MLB awards, Ty France would be up there being like, I'm so proud. And then other things, and I don't really care.
But you get to expose your players, though. You get to expose your players and their personalities to maybe an audience that didn't know them and didn't see them.
Have them do like a poker tournament. You have 6 guys just like play poker. I'd rather watch that than a guy go up there in the nicest tuxedo he's ever bought, and then say like a minute about how much he loves his mom and dad. Like, it's fine. I don't need that.
But the way they do it right now is just. It's an afterthought.
What about this, though? I mean, Ryan's throwing out cross-promotion, do it at the Super Bowl halftime show. Cross-promote that in the All-Star game. When a guy wins an award, he has to go out and face, like, Paul Skeens. And then he has to, like, talk about, his mom, his dad, his Little League coach, his pony coach, while he's trying to, like, think, like, oh, is this going to be the splitter or is this going to be the fastball at the top of the zone? I think you just add that extra element of live sports, and maybe then I'll be able to lock in. There's a baseball game going, I might be able to blend the award ceremony, but those are our thoughts. All right, quickly to wrap it up, because we got to wrap up in about 5 minutes here. We tried to get you the 60 names, the leaked names of Chris Getz's 60 candidates for the White Sox managerial hire. All right, so I'll try to do this in under 4 minutes. Obviously, Will Venable was on there. Ends up being the White Sox manager, so check.
59 to go.
59 to go. Skip Schumacher didn't seem like he was interested in the White Sox job. Obviously couldn't go back to Miami. I think they thought about Skip Schumacher. We have Phil Nevin, who my Sox summer saw outside of guaranteed rate field. Grady Sizemore, the interim, who Chris Getz said would get a shot. Craig Alberniz, who was kind of a late contender there, was kind of a late addition to the White Sox race. Danny Lehman, bench coach for the Dodgers, didn't end up getting the job. George Lombard, I think, pulled out from the search. A.J. Ellis also pulled out from the search due to family reasons. Donnie Ecker declined to become the next manager and stayed in Texas. Daniel Descalso gives us 10. Seemed like they were interested of the Cardinals coach currently. 11, Buck Showalter. We know Buck Showalter was interested. Someone in that room was probably bringing up Buck Showalter. Could be Buck Showalter just calling Tony Lewis's phone. Buck Showalter, I think, was brought up. Carlos Beltran and Jason Varitek were named by John Heyman. Those are baseball names. And very important to be a baseball name. Nomar Garcia Parra, I put on there because I watched the 2004 thing on Netflix, and I'm like, I'd love Nomar as a White Sox manager.
So we've made the transition in case you were waiting for it.
15 and 16, Dave Roberts. I think they were thinking about it.
Twice?
Right? We thought about it. Twice.
Both 15 and 16?
Yeah, they're 15 and 16. Okay. Well, we laid out the thought, like, what if the Dodgers lose the World Series? Do they fire Dave Roberts? I think Chris Getz probably had to go. If you have 60 candidates, he's probably playing out every scenario. So he probably put Dave Roberts' name on the list. We talk about Aaron Boone possibly getting fired. I think Aaron Boone was possibly thought of, is it possible with the Poland family selling the Twins? Do they get Rocco Baldelli for a bag of balls? I mean, it's a scenario I think Chris Getz has to play out. Rocco Baldelli's 17. At 18, a former teammate of Will Venable, maybe Will Venable brought him up and spoke highly in the interview, and this leads to Anthony Rizzo stepping away from playing and becoming a manager. Anthony Rizzo, again, great leader. Maybe it could be a manager. 19, you brought this up, Herb. Jim Thome. We've seen him in spring training already with the White Sox. Why not give him the job? At 20, we love former White Sox players. Why not Robin Ventura? At 21, why not Ozzie Guillen? We've tried it before, but why not again? Ozzie won a World Series in 2005. Not a lot of people talk about that. 22, I think if you're having a White Sox interview, you have to invite Darryl Boston, right? It just kind of seems like the lay of the land. At 23, our guy Paul Sorvino, who just dominated. I mean, this was a guy that was the Brewers manager for 8 years.
A decade.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that really put in the work. And if you're talking about experience, you look no farther than Paul Sorvino.
I think he's dead.
Or whatever his character's name was.
Is Paul Sorvino dead?
He is currently not with us.
This is digging into your time, Sean.
R.I.P. Oh, yeah. Died in 2022. Sorry, Paul. I think this guy's also dead at 24. Connie Mack. We love old-time baseball. We love Branch Rickey, who's the 25th name. We're thinking that Jerry Reinsdorf has a say, and I'm assuming he's throwing out Connie Mack, our guy Branch Rickey. Maybe he's thinking Roy Campanella. Roy Campanella was never a manager from what I know. I didn't do much research, but Roy Campanella could possibly be a manager. I think Jerry probably wanted the opportunity to yell at Walter O'Malley for moving the Dodgers from Brooklyn. So I think Walter O'Malley was probably considered. And if we're talking about old-time baseball, why not get a guy that just has experience with old-time hockey? Eddie Shore. Let's go get Eddie Shore. And we've seen Chris Getz bring in former Marines for their thought process. I think that they probably considered William J. Burns, the director of the CIA, Christopher A. Ray, the director of the FBI, and Timothy D. Haw, the director of the NSA, because these are guys that have been the directors of very large organizations. The White Sox are a very large organization, just my thought. We know the White Sox have been kind of struggling with money, bringing in attendance. Boxing and MMA were struggling until Turki Al-Sheikh came over with all of his Saudi money. Maybe Turki Al-Sheikh got a look because of the money and because he could probably just bring in all the players. I don't think that's a crazy thought. Maybe he ends up being the general manager, but who cares? Theo Hepstein, I read Thed Hepstein. We've talked about Theo and Jed being one together. I think they'd be called Thed Hepstein. Someone brought up Ron Santo, so let's put up Ron Santo on the list. Vince Lombardi and George Halas, these guys made football, so let's reinvent baseball. Charles Comiskey, they got the statue out there already. You don't need to rebuild it. Tom Amansky, Pedro Grifol, John Riggins, Joe Riggins. Joe Riggins was the guy that was the manager in Bull Durham. Sweet Lou Brown, Clark Lee, Jimmy Duggan, the guy from
League of Their Own.
Lee Elia, made him his mark in Chicago, just like Will Venable. You got Jerry Manuel, Terry Bevington, Jeff Torborg, Gene Lamont, if you want to go back. I think you got to interview Shohei Ohtani to see if he's interested.
Or the dog.
At least.
Show his dog.
You know what? Well, I think it was actually 61. I think Chris Getz missed that. 51 is Shohei's dog. 52, the Sod father. Again, he's been able to conquer Sod. Can he conquer baseball? 54 now, Lionel Hutz. He's always seeming to get himself into a job interview. 55, the entire 2005 White Sox roster.
Co-managers.
At one time. Yeah, you got 26 co-managers. 56, Hawk Harrelson. 57, a meeting to allow Brooks Boyer to yell at Jason Benetti one last time. 57, Nancy Foss. 58, Southpaw. 59, Ribby. And 60, at Jerry's request, Tony La Russa. We are building the best community and biggest community of Chicago sports fans, and we want you to be a part of it so much that we're giving you a special offer with our lowest rate ever. Become a diehard, a CHGO diehard today for $4 a monthly, billed annually. For $48 a year, you get a free shirt, access to our exclusive written content, plenty of discounts, and access to our CHGO Discord lounge. We get to hang and talk Chicago sports with all of us. You can join us in the Discord and talk White Sox today. Sign up at allchgo.com/intro. That's Vinnie Duber, our CHGO White Sox beat writer. That's Herb Lawrence, our CHGO White Sox community leader. I'm Sean Anderson. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 4.
We all silly like the mayor.